Welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. Large wildfires have been actively burning for weeks, and smoke from these fires have traveled thousands of miles, clouding New York City skies with haze, and that beautiful red sun we all saw in photographs is a sign of trouble, as those same smoke particles reach the atmosphere. Joining us now to share more about the recent and ongoing Western wildfires and how they're affecting us thousands of miles away is Sarah Rogowski, meteorologist and emergency response specialist at National Weather Service. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Of course. So to start, Sarah, where are these wildfires taking place currently?
We've had wildfires across the West. So far over the past couple of weeks, the most concentration of the wildfires is actually in parts of eastern Washington, especially in Idaho and western Montana. But we do have fires across the West getting into California, some large fires in Oregon and in Nevada, and even Utah as well. And those fires are continuing and starting to contribute to the smoke, even and all that smoke is starting to travel and continuing to travel across the country and get into the East Coast.
And how do the majority of these wildfires start, Sarah, if you can share?
Wildfires can start a lot of different ways. Recent and prolonged period of hot and dry conditions across the West, along with several record-breaking heat events from June and July, are all contributing to very efficient fire growth. That means the fires are able to spread and grow. We've got widespread severe to exceptional drought conditions, and we've had some thunderstorm activity, especially thunderstorms with very little rainfall. And that means that lightning can spark wildfires, and the gusty winds associated with the thunderstorms can spread those fires quickly.
Thank you for sharing, Sarah. So we've seen some dense smoke in the past weeks in New York City. For instance, just last week I was driving on the Cross Bronx Expressway and the smoke was incredibly dense. How common is it for smoke to travel so far into the east, and how exactly does it happen? I know a few of us are wondering here in New York City where this is coming from.
Really large fires can produce a lot of smoke, and that smoke can go pretty high in the atmosphere. When I say high in the atmosphere, I'm talking 30 to 40,000 feet. And that's able to get caught up by upper level winds and make that smoke travel and disperse for a pretty broad area. So we're seeing smoke impacts across the US from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast. Most of the time as it gets farther away from the source of the fire, you'll see some dispersion, so it won't be as thick. And that will result in those hazy skies that we've been seeing on the East Coast and we've been seeing across the country for the past few weeks.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing and breaking that down, Sarah. So here in the Bronx in particular, we already deal with poor air quality issues and high asthma rates. So this is a huge cause for concern. Now, how dangerous is this traveling smoke for us? And does the impact dissipate as it gets further away from the source of the fire?
We will see dispersion as smoke travels, especially if it's going from the West Coast to the East Coast. There can be air quality alerts in effect or air quality advisories, and those are issued by air quality specialists and different departments within each state. And those give a lot more of the health impact. So depending on your local area, those advisories will have certain health alerts. Usually we recommend that people remain inside if they can, especially if they are more prone to health impacts from poor air quality, such as asthma. Try to stay inside. And you'll notice as you get outside in the smoke, maybe your eyes will feel a little bit more irritated, your throat will feel a little irritated. And that's a good sign. It's telling you that the air quality is not as good and I might feel some impacts from it.
Got it. Something else I read, Sarah, was something about PM 2.5. I'm sorry, I don't know too much about these scientific terms, but if you can just break down what that is and, how it affects us as well.
That's going to be more for air quality and health experts. For weather, that's definitely outside of our field, but you'll probably get some more information from your local health department.
Thank you for that. We'll definitely invite someone to follow up about this. So earlier I mentioned the sun's red tinge. While it was a source of amusement for plenty of people here in New York City, as I shared, so many people went out to take photographs and videos of the red sun and the red moon. Can you share why this is not a good sign and what the sun is trying to indicate?
Well, as we see that smoke travel across the country, you have more particulates in the air and it all reflects and refracts differently with the light. So when you're getting more smoke concentration, you'll see those colors reflect differently. And so you start getting those tints of red to the sun and the moon. And we're seeing that across the country as well. And depending on where you are, if you have a little bit more clear view of the sun or the moon, you'll see slightly different shading across the country.
And do we know how long this smoke will stick around in New York City?
As long as there are large fires in the West, you have the potential for smoke getting across the country. And depending on how strong those fires are, how much smoke they're producing, and the upper level winds, that can all have an influence as you get farther away from the fire, and local health, local impacts in your local fire and local weather as well. So we actually just got a little bit of clearing in Utah for a day in between the next probably round of smoke as we go in our local area, and just a tiny small impact from the smoke, but we do notice day-to-day changes.
And Sarah, you can break down how this also contributes to the current climate emergency in our world. Really, I know a lot of folks, are not familiar with all the things that are happening in the world in terms of, water shortage, as well as just weather. How it's affecting us. If you could just break that down as well.
So across the West, we're seeing record-breaking heat. We are seeing severe to extreme drought that's been going on for a long time. We've had a very hot and dry summer already, and all of that's contributing to the increased fire weather and wildfire activity. We're expecting warmer than normal temperatures and below normal precipitation across the West and the Northwest through the remainder of the summer, and also looking at below normal precipitation, especially across the Northwest through the remainder of the summer. Now, while it's not possible to tie a single event or even a single series of events, we're noticing that the research is showing that these events are becoming more likely and becoming more extreme, have the potential to become more prolonged. So it's expecting to be an active summer, especially according to the National Interagency Fire Center, who's predicting increased fire weather activity for the rest of the season.
Oh, wow. So there's seasonal fires as well, Sarah. There's something called, I guess, just a season of fires happening. Does it normally happen this way every year, or how does it work?
So across the West, summer is our wildfire season. That's where we're typically hotter, drier, have those potential for drier thunderstorms. So this is our fire weather season, similar to the severe weather season of the Central Plains or hurricane season along the Gulf and East Coasts. What we are going to continue to see, though, we saw earlier than normal activity this summer when it came to wildfires. It's already getting more wildfire activity. So with the National Interagency Fire Center already predicting increased fire weather activity through the remainder of the season, it's going to be a little bit longer of a season than we've seen, and probably expect more fires, more smoke, and see those effects continue getting across the country.
I've seen a fire in particular, in news media. It's called the bootleg fire. Which fire is this, and where is this one located?
The bootleg fire is located in Oregon, and that's been one of the stronger fires. It's making its own records. It's one of the top few strongest fires that Oregon has seen. And that fire has resulted in very, very high smoke activity. And those, with that fire being very intense, the smoke can get very high. So that we've seen images through the summer, especially satellite images showing where that fire is located and watching the smoke plumes spread across the country. And that's one of the results of these very strong and very intense fires.
Sarah, do you have any notes for emergency preparedness? How can we stay safe and also prepare for anything coming up?
So if you're in a fire area that could typically have a defensible space, kind of clear away some of the brush from your immediate property immediately next to your home. You want to have an emergency plan, just like you do for hurricane season. You can have one for fire season because you have a much shorter time period to get ready to go. Hurricane gives you a few days usually, whereas a fire can be almost immediate. You need to get out now. Pay attention to local authorities when it comes to fire safety, when to evacuate, especially out west, but we can see wildfires in other places beyond the west. Try to keep your preparedness. You can go to weather.gov, and we have safety sites for each different type of weather hazard. So we have it for wildfires, for severe weather, for fog. You can help your family make a plan to stay safe. Have that plan ready early before you need it so that you're ready to enact it if you have to.
Absolutely. Super important to have prevention and preparedness methods in place. Thank you so much for that, Sarah. Before we go, NOAA, in partnership with Environmental Protection Agency or the EPA, issues daily air quality forecast guidance to help us navigate poor air quality. Can you share best practices to protect ourselves at this time? And again, share those resources with us.
So when you start looking at weather.gov, you can find air quality forecasts, and we're using computer models along with observations and air quality experts to get that information out, tell you when it's going to be the worst, when it's looking to be better. It helps give you the message where if you are more at risk with your own health concerns, what kind of more safe, such as if you need to stay indoors, and keep an eye out for when the conditions could be worse versus better.
Thank you so much for your time today and your expertise, Sarah. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. Sarah Rogowski is a meteorologist and emergency response specialist at National Weather Service. We'll be right back here on Open BXRX Tuesday.